Alright guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be playing Delta V Rings of Saturn. This is a pretty realistic 2D top-down space mining simulator. It's got moments that get stressful, but I actually find it to be quite a relaxing game in general, so I'm excited to share this with you guys. I'm going to be doing this kind of halfway as a review slash getting started sort of thing, so that hopefully you guys know what you're getting into if you want to buy the game, and hopefully it's entertaining if you don't. So they immediately drop you into the space station. I mean, this is where you'll be able to do stuff later when you actually have money, but first time through, we're just going to jump right into launching a dive. And I like how they compare it to diving. Works pretty well, actually. Default settings are good for the first run. We'll get into those in probably another run or two. Hit launch. They give you this nice little launch animation. Alright, so right off the bat, you'll notice that this is a lot of data that they have right here. Well, we'll get into that in a second. Alright, so immediately off the bat, a lot of information right here. Kind of is overwhelming, but each quadrant is something different. So up here in the upper left, you basically have navigation, right? It's a mini map with your basically how fast you're moving, orientation, bearing, all the numeric readouts to go with the mini map. Down here is your cargo hold. We'll get into that in a second, but this basically just tells you what you currently have on your ship. In the upper right is the status of all of your different ship systems, as well as a whole bunch of numeric readouts regarding weight and like mass and velocity, fuel kind of stuff. And then down in the lower right is just an overall health activity monitor. So, I mean, the entire premise of this game, like I mentioned, is it's a pretty realistic space mining simulator. So, controls right off the bat, WASD like pans the ship around, and then Q and E give you a good bit of rotation. Autopilot is controlled with the arrow keys, so left and right adjust your bearing, and forward, backward adjust the speed. And that's where, again, you kind of get over here. So you could use the mini-map up here to figure out where asteroids are. That's what all the little blips are. And then you can use the numbers down here to tell you how fast you're moving. 50 is by default the fastest speed, and it's pretty quick. So with an empty ship, you can usually make it happen. You just have to be on the radar up here. So we're currently going at a 090, which is right on this green line right here. So really all we have to care about are blips that are on the green line. And I usually like to start off with a dive to 10 kilometers. So we'll wait until the depth over here reads 10. And then we'll just kind of run with it. So I typically try to find some of the bigger chunks. These guys are good. So you hit X, and it'll immediately bring you to a stop, which is pretty nice. So it's probably the key you'll use more than anything else. And then once you have something that you want to aim at, you can click on it, and this kind of puts you into a relative mode. So now I'm doing 0 meters per second relative to the sky. By default, you have basically, they call it a mass driver. It's a cannon that you can use to break up asteroids. So we'll take a couple shots at this guy. And then here's where clicking on things is really nice, because it'll just bring the ship to orient towards that thing. And then we'll just do some general maneuvering. This guy, since he was the closest. So you'll click on him, and then you just press the up arrow key until you're moving towards him. And then once you get close, you use the enter key to open your hatch. And into the cargo bay he goes. And then X to bring us back to a standstill. So you'll notice down here that they tell you have about 5,000 credits on board. Most of it's in platinum, little bits in water, and everything's up and kind of in the neck of the cargo hold still. So if I hit enter and back up, that'll actually come out of the cargo hold, which could kind of become a problem. Yeah, so if you're trying to catch other resources, where things are located inside of the cargo bay is actually really important, because while you're flying to pick up the next chunk of debris, you might lose the debris you currently have. Break these things up, get a good chunk of cash, come home. There we go. There's a nice green blip like you like to see. It's flying towards us. I'm going to burn forward a little bit to keep the cargo in my cargo bay from coming out, and then we'll go chase after this chunk of rock. This is the part of the game that's kind of relaxing, honestly. Like, just busting up asteroids. There we go. Alright, well, we have that chunk of whatever that is. We'll burn towards it. Nice, gentle 8 meters a second. Not in a rush. Burn forward enough to get the cargo bay contents to shift backwards, but not a lot to get a ton of real velocity. Keep in mind that going fast takes a lot of propellant, which we don't have a lot of, and there's no penalty for going slow, so why go fast? Alright, but we have this nice little blip right there. We'll burn towards it. 10 meters per second is about the fastest I like to go, but the problem is once you slow down, you see the stuff in the cargo bay shifts forward, so you kind of have to like slow down a little bit too much, and then you can speed back up to get it all to shift backwards again. But yeah, this is pretty much what your first dive is going to be entirely made of, is just find rocks, blow them up, and wait until you get a good chunk of money, or you start getting low on Delta V, and then we're gonna return to the station. Ooh, this is important. So this dude has like flecks of blue in him. So that's gonna be beryllium, which is a very, whatchamacallit, very valuable resource. So later on you'll be able to kind of tell which fragments are valuable and which ones are not. That's actually gonna be one of the first things I recommend grabbing, but until then, if you see blue, you grab it. And if you see other ships, you burn away from them. Now, one of the big things is as you maneuver, you'll find that two things happen. Obviously, first and foremost, your total ship mass right here starts increasing. I mean, if you have more cargo in the cargo bay, you do tend to weigh more. On top of that, you consume propellant whenever you move, so your propellant's going to go down. Delta V is a spacey term. If you're not familiar with it, this represents your total change in velocity. So right now, if I were to pick a direction and just go, I could reach 4,000 meters per second, and then I'd be out of propellant. Or I could go 2,000 meters per second and then bring myself to a stop. Or more productively, I'll make a whole bunch of tiny little adjustments as I go. But the problem is, as you pick up more weight, it takes more propellant to push that weight around, and therefore your Delta V will just kind of exponentially go down as you pick up more cargo. So we'll probably go until I'm at about 1,000-ish Delta V, and then we'll call it a day and head back to the station. Here's another thing. So if you left-click on an object, it'll lock your autopilot onto it, but if you right-click and hold, it'll let you aim the ship without locking your autopilot, which does let you move around more efficiently. So let's see here. We're kind of already moving in this general direction, so we're just going to take shots at this guy and see if he'll launch debris right about the right path, and look at that, he sure did. So now to go home, all we have to do is hit J. So this is the mechanics screen. Obviously, if your ship takes damage, you can use all these sliders to sort of adjust and try to compensate for the situation as best you can. You can also turn things on or off with the power icons over here. Come over to the Astrogator tab. These are the locations you know about. Geologist, these are the ores you know about, what you want to see. Pilot tab tells you about ships around you. Currently, there's no one. So we're just going to come back over here, click the station, hit plot a course, and let autopilot take us home. Nice thing is that it doesn't require a whole lot of Delta V to get to the loading screen. So you could be at like 1,000-ish Delta V, click on that button, and get home just fine. All right, brought us back to the station. And now we get to decide what we want to do. So if you've got a good bit of cash, you can actually take all of this and put it in storage. And I'll show you guys in a second, there's actually like a stock market for all these different materials. Or, you know, we're just going to sell all of them now. For example, you know, we can come over to the mineral market, and should we have known ahead of time that, say, beryllium, actually it is kind of at a low point, and we think that in a little bit it's going to sell for a lot higher, we might have just put everything in storage, and then we can manually sell what we want to sell from here and keep what's currently low. Repairs, thankfully we don't have to make any repairs, everything's all topped off. One of the big things you'll notice though is that even like this new ship right out of the box has a little bit of wear on some of the thrusters, and that's going to mean that the ship never quite flies perfectly. Like, no matter what you do, it's not going to be flawless unless you straight up take one of these dudes and replace them. So, like, we'll find out one of the cheaper ones, this guy. Boom, replace him with a brand new thruster. He's now perfectly 000. And we could do that for all of them. But the problem is, as soon as you take a little bit of damage, then these numbers are going to start creeping back up. Long story short, like thrusters can get misaligned, they can fire or misfire. I think that's what the wear is. And then choke basically is I want it to, or it just is not putting out quite as much propellant as the other thrusters. And all three of those will lead you to, like, you know, you'll hit W to fly in a straight line and you'll end up veering off to one side or the other. And so again, we could replace all of them, but as soon as you take any damage, these are gonna just always have 0 to 5%, just a tiny little bit of tolerance built into them, basically. The computer is kind of funny. You can have faulty connections where it just reports bad values. It can short circuit where it just reports no value. It can overheat where it completely crashes. The nuclear reactor can have problems. All in all, this is like one of my favorite aspects of the game. Like every little bit of damage that you take sticks with you in some way, shape, or form and kind of has this long-term effect and long-term impact, and nothing is ever quite perfect. And a lot of the game is just dealing with those tiny little imperfections, those tiny quirks as they pop up. So yeah, I mean, obviously I like this game a lot. I find that it's got a really nice balance between being laid back, but also tense at times, and difficult and rewarding, but also not incredibly time consuming. So I like it, and hopefully you guys can start to see a little bit of why I like it, but I'm going to break things off right here just to kind of keep things short. I'll put out a second video in a couple weeks that basically covers what to buy for your second dive and how the second dive typically goes. Obviously that gets more into the early game. Your first dive is really just kind of a tutorial and getting started, so if you like this video, obviously subscribe so you know when that one drops. And as always, I love hearing from you guys in the comment section, so if you want to give me feedback about this format, what you liked about the video, what you liked about the game, love to talk with you guys down there. But yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and if it's Friday, have a great weekend. Catch you guys later.